What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? How the trick or treat pitchers led to the D-backs' demise in game number 2, and is Ketel Marte an MVP finalist?
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait, reduce your tax debt, and get help from a team of licensed tax professionals. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. On today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, we'll talk about Game 2 to the Twins. Can Monty step up in the finale to deliver the D-backs a big series win? And is Ketel Marte an MVP finalist? Discussing all that on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms. So please continue to tell your friends. Now let's get into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Now let's discuss game number 2 to the Minnesota Twins, because we got to see the trick or treat effort by our D-backs pitchers in game 2. Ryne Nelson, who is someone that has a very up and down nature in his game. He is coming off 2 really good starts. The one before that against the Padres, not so good. And then the one before that, very good. He's been good in 3 of his last 4 starts, coming off back-to-back very good starts by his standards. And so we thought against the Minnesota Twins, a team that is good, not great, we thought it was an opportunity for Ryne Nelson to once again put together a good showing, put together a good performance, stack your resume a little bit, because those recent good starts that we just talked about came against like the Washington Nationals, I think, or the Chicago White Sox. Like the recent really dominant starts by Ryne Nelson was against some of the worst competition in Major League Baseball. And so doing it against a more formidable opponent in the against the Minnesota Twins would have just added more credence to the fact that maybe Ryne Nelson is starting to get better as a pitcher. He is starting to develop, and now that recent success they saw him have against bad teams, it's also translating against the teams above 500 in Major League Baseball as well. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case, because from the get-go, Ryne Nelson was getting tagged early and often in this game, and he was just never able to find his footing. From the moment this game started, it felt like BP for the Twins, because it felt like every pitch was an extra base hit or a double or a triple. Like the Twins had so many extra base hits in this game, so many doubles. They had a home run as well. Like they were lighting up Ryne Nelson through those first 4 innings, and he was never able to find his footing in this game. 6 earned runs, 10 hits allowed, and it was a lot of loud contact for Ryne Nelson. It was a lot of hard contact for Ryne Nelson. And for someone who we thought was potentially turning a corner and pitching better recently, big step back for Ryne Nelson in this performance. The exit velo on the night for Ryne Nelson averaged 95 miles an hour. Like the balls were flying off the bats for the Minnesota Twins. And considering Zach Gallen is coming back this Saturday, the D-backs are going to have to make a decision with their pitchers, and Ryne Nelson could be on the chopping block. I don't think he gets sent down Saturday when Zach Gallen gets activated, but a poor performance like this against the Minnesota Twins, where the D-backs are fighting to get to 500. We're still a team trying to get back to 500. We're still not there yet. We're 39-41. Could have been 500 if the D-backs won game number 2. Ryne Nelson could have delivered us a 500 record, but instead, trick or treat Ryne Nelson doesn't deliver and the D-backs lose. And how many times as D-backs fans have we seen this archetype of game before, where Your starting pitcher, probably a Ryan Nelson or like a Slade Ciccone. They go out there, they get shelled for the first 3 or 4 innings, give up 6 earned runs, and then, oh well, we're gonna concede this game now. Here comes Scott McGough in the 4th inning, and once he comes in the game that early, you know it's over because Scott McGough, whenever he comes in the game in the middle innings, he tends to give earned runs. He doesn't look the best. He comes in, Brandon Hughes comes in. They both just not the best relievers, and it wasn't even Scott McGough's fault really. They gave up an earned run. I mean, it was a 2-run shot given up by Brandon Hughes with the inherited runner on from Scott McGough. But once you see Scott McGough come in the game before the 6th inning, I like turn off the game most of the time. 80% of the time, if Scott McGough comes in the game before the 6th, that means the D-backs are down like 8 runs and they're going to lose the game because whenever he comes in the game, he only ever exacerbates the lead for the opposing team. And so you could have turned this game off once you saw McGough come in this game, and you would have been fine. Then from there, Torey Lovello, he knows the pitching staff to go with when he doesn't think the D-backs have a chance because the first one out the pen is always Scott McGough. And after that, it's going to be another reliever that the D-backs don't trust, like a Brandon Hughes that we saw today, and then a Vieira who we also saw today. Like, once the game gets away from the D-backs early, that's when they start using their worst relievers in the pen. And I actually respect that strategy by Torey Lovello to do that, not waste any of your good guys, just throw out the guys that we don't trust in the bullpen to go out on the days that we already concede the games. I'm fine with that. The offense, let's not let them off the hook. They really didn't do much today either. I thought they did show some signs of life later in the game, but I thought they were going to do a little bit more in their effort of a comeback in this ball game. But once you're down 6-0 and then you're down 8-1, hard to come back in a ball game. But most of this offense, I mean, just did nothing. 4 hits total from the team. And again, the first stat that we always like to look at, strikeouts in a game. D-backs, 8 strikeouts, just 4 hits total. Not going to be good enough. 0 for 3 with the runners in scoring position. And once again, Eugenio Suarez in the lineup for the D-backs. Why, I ask, why is Eugenio Suarez in the lineup every single day? I don't understand how everyone in the lineup can get rest days and off days. And you look a little tired. You got some bags under your eyes, Ketel. Take the day off. Corbin Carroll, you're a little sore from running to first base yesterday. Take the day off. Somehow everyone gets a day off in this lineup except for Eugenio Suarez, who once again struck out on a pitch that almost hit him because every time he tries to get away from a pitch that he thinks is too close or too high and he tries to avoid it, he always ends up swinging the same time. Like, why can't you avoid a pitch without swinging your body 180 or however many degrees you need to swing it for it to count as a strike? Because the amount of times I've seen Eugenio Suarez try to avoid pitches and still ends up swinging at them and striking out is beyond me. So I better not see Eugenio Suarez in the finale, in the finale's lineup, because the D-backs are going to need a big, potentially big offensive performance so they can solidify another series win before they face the Oakland A's this weekend for the final series of June. And to win the game tomorrow, potentially you might need to sit Eugenio Suarez, and we'll preview the finale in segment number 2. But hey, if you're looking to win some money on America's #1 fantasy sports app, then you need to try Prize Picks because it has more than 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, Prize Picks is just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And also, let me tell you guys about Tax Network USA because here on Locked On Dimebacks, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year round. You know what else is year round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A-plus rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockdown. See the link in the episode description below. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's do a little preview of game number two, or excuse me, not game number two, game number three, the finale against the Minnesota Twins, because the D backs have done a great job of handling their business this month. It's something that we've talked about and hammered on this podcast. The schedule for the month of June, we probably started looking back on it when the D backs were playing the Padres, because this whole month, you started the series against the New York Mets, a very vulnerable opponent. We thought that was a very winnable series. Again, but the D-backs at the time were, we weren't very confident in them. We weren't very confident in them, but thankfully the D-backs were able to go 500 in that series and start the month of June with 2 wins. Then you had your NL West opponent and wild card rival Giants to win that series. You split your next series against NL West opponent and wild card race rival San Diego Padres. Then vulnerable opponent Angels, you handle your business there. Vulnerable weak opponent against the White Sox, you handle business there. The Nationals, mediocre but feisty, but also in your way in the wild card. Handle your business there. We lose to the Phillies, which we expected, but for the rest of the month, you split against the Mets, you won the Giants, you split the Padres, you beat the Angels, White Sox, and Nats. Now going into the finale against the Twins, you have to do it one more time and once again rise up in the finale. Continue your assertion that you're going through right now in the month of June, where your offense looks good, you're handling opponents that you should handle, and the ones who are a little bit more competitive, you're at least not losing those series outside of the Philadelphia Phillies. Against the Padres, you at least split that series. Against the Mets, you at least split that series. Now for the Minnesota Twins, you have to beat them in the series finale. You have to maintain in the wild card race. You're still a game and a half back, whatever, 2 games back in the wild card race. You want to maintain your advantage there and keep pace with the teams ahead of you. You have to win the finale against the Minnesota Twins. And also, you still want to beat more good teams on your resume. If you're the D-backs, you still haven't beaten a ton of good teams. Even when I just went through the schedule in June, the only good teams that you've beaten this month, I mean, do you consider the Giants a good team? I don't know about that. The Giants are right where the D-backs are in the standings. The Giants, when you look at their record, I'm currently pulling it up. The Giants, they're 3 games below 500. So are they a good team? Hard to say. The Nationals, are they a good team? They're in the wild card race, but the Nationals, they're 38-42. So for the D-backs, who have they been that's good this month? It's still not a very strong list of contenders that they've been this month. That's why I've been happy with what they've been able to do, because they've been able to handle their opponents and at least split the series against the better teams. But their whole resume on the season, they still haven't been a ton of good teams. And so the Minnesota Twins would easily be one of the 3, 4 best teams that the D-backs have been in a series this year. Adds a little bit more credence and respectability to what we believe the D-backs can accomplish this year. And so for the D-backs, I think going into that finale tomorrow is so important. Go get you another series win, continue to handle your business the month of June, and then you get the final series against the Oakland A's. If you can finish the month of June without losing one series all month, I think that would be a fantastic mark on your record. Plus, with the offense heating up, it would feel like this D-backs team is truly turning a corner if you can go a whole calendar month without losing a series. Obviously they lost the Philly series, but again, I don't even count that series. So outside the Philly series, if you handle every other series in the month of June, I think that would be a great mark by this Arizona Diamondbacks team. And what they've shown you in the month of June, whenever they enter that series finale and the series is tied 1-1, the offense typically steps up in that finale against the San Diego Padres. They were down 2-1 in the series, entering game number 4. They put up 9 runs against the LA Angels. 1-1 series through 2 games. And even that Angels series, they lost game number 2 8-3, just like they lost tonight 8-3. And then in game number 3 against the Angels, they won 11-1. Against the Chicago White Sox, they lost game number 2 9-2. And then in game number 3, the finale, they won 12-5. Against the Nationals, they won the finale after being 1-1 in the series 5-2. That's what the D-backs do in their series finales. In the month of June, in their last few series finales outside the Phillies, they show up, they come alive offensively, and they dominate the game. And if they could do that in tomorrow's finale, that will go a long way for the D-backs' confidence and also for the wild card standings. And on the mound, of course, we're going to have our highest paid pitcher, Jordan Montgomery, who are still wanting just a little bit more from Monty. He's been pitching better recently. Over his last 2 starts, 11 innings pitched, 2 earned runs. Over his last 3 starts, it's about, what is that? I'm doing the math in my head. 10, 16, 16.2 innings pitched, 5 earned runs over his last 3 starts. He's been very good recently, but he's also not pitching very deep into ball games. He's going about 5 to 6 innings, around 80 pitches, 85 pitches. Like, I need 6 2/3, 98 pitches from Jordan Montgomery in the finale. Highest paid pitcher on the staff, World Series winner. Like, we need elite Monty on the mound. We need big boy Monty to go out there and eat some innings. That would be very nice. Save the bullpen for a day. Let's just see a little J Mart, Paul Sewald come in the 8th and ninth. Maybe Ryne Thompson, Paul Sewald combination in the 8th and ninth, the 8th and ninth inning tomorrow. And let's get a big D-backs series finale win. And let's end the month of June right with another series win against the Oakland A's this weekend. But it all starts tomorrow in a little afternoon matinee against the Minnesota Twins. And one person who might need to step up tomorrow is Ketel Marte, because we'll talk about him being potentially an MVP finalist in segment number 3. But hey, if you need any parts for your vehicle, then the best place you're going to want to go is, of course, eBay Motors, because passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And also, are you struggling to close deals? Selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up to date first party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/locked on. That is linkedin.com/locked on for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/locked on and get started. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast and let's discuss Ketel Marte and if he's an MVP finalist. Because the answer is, of course, hell yeah. ESPN recently dropped a little midseason award, and they actually had Ketel Marte, I believe, as high as number 3 in their NL MVP race, which you might think is a little bit crazy. They had, well, to be honest, the only thing crazy about it is how they did this ranking, because based off the ranking, they had Otani first, Mookie Betts 2, and Ketel Marte 3. I guess based off what we've seen so far this season, that's fair. But if you're also going to take the future into account, like Mookie Betts is already kind of cooked in the MVP race. He's going to be out a few weeks. He fractured his hand. If he misses what? If he only plays 130 games this year or less, Mookie Betts is not winning the MVP. He's just not going to play enough games, I think, with that broken hand. And so, even with ESPN saying Ketel Marte is ranked third, he should actually be ranked second among MVP finalists according to ESPN's own ranking. Now, if you're asking me, if you're saying an MVP finalist is only guys who finish top 3, then I actually don't think Ketel is an MVP finalist. If I had to do my official MVP ballot right now, I unfortunately wouldn't have Ketel Marte as a top 3 guy. I would have, of course, Shohei Otani number 1. That's easy. If you're going to take into account Mookie's season so far, he would be ahead of Ketel Marte, but because Mookie, I don't think will play enough games to qualify, we're going to take him out this discussion. So Otani's still number 1. Then after that, I think I'm going to have Marcell Ozuna number 2. He's having a monster season, and you can make the argument he should be the MVP over Otani, but I look at Otani's numbers again, and God, he has retaken Ozuna in the home runs. Ozuna has him in ribbies, but Otani also is like second in the league or third in the league in stolen bases. Like, he's very high up there, leads the league in OPS. Like, Otani's number 1 in MVP voting. I think I might have Marcell Ozuna number 2. Probably Bryce Harper number 3. And then, to be honest, I would say like Juraxen Profar number 4, which sounds crazy, but he's had a phenomenal year this year. He's had multiple grand slams. He's come through so many times with the bases loaded and runners in scoring position. Then you got to look at a guy like Freddie Freeman, who's also having himself a fantastic season. So right now, I think Ketel Marte, you could put him at number 6 on the ballot, and I think I would be fine with that. For me, the question I think is, when I look at the offensive numbers, I think he's number 6 on my MVP ballot. But of course, the MVP, it's more than just offense. It also takes into account your defense as well. And so if I take defense into account, I think Ketel Marte should be ahead of Profar and should be ahead of Marcell Ozuna as well, and should even be ahead of Bryce Harper. The question is how you value someone's offense versus their defense. Ozuna plays zero defense because I think he's a DH full time. He plays some outfield as well. Let me look at his fielding real quick. He's played 2 games in the outfield this year. Or excuse me, he's played 0 games. He's been full-time DH this season. So when comparing Ketel Marte's defense versus Marcell Ozuna's offense, like, I think that's a great debate. When you're doing your MVP ballot, I think that's a great debate. Ozuna, I think, clearly has better numbers than Ketel Marte offensively, but the defensive metrics tell you Marte is probably the best defensive second baseman in baseball this year. Probably like a top 5 defender overall in the sport, regardless of position, top 10. Like, Marte's having an elite defensive season. So the question is, how do you measure that defense versus someone's offense? I think is a great question. I have no problem if ESPN wants to put Ketel Marte third because of his clutch hitting, his consistent bat in the D-backs offense, the fact that he's elite defensively. I'm fine with that. But also feel like Just straight up, Harper, Otani, Ozuna, Freeman, Profar are just having better offensive seasons than Ketel Marte. Yes, they may not be the same level of defensive player, but I just value offense more. I'm not going to fault you either if you think those players should be ahead of Ketel Marte in your MVP ballot. For me, when I weigh both Marte's offense and defense, again, it's hard for me to put him higher than 6 because I just value offense so much, and I think guys like Profar, Freddie, Ozuna, Harper, and Otani are just having monster seasons. Ketel, he's having a monster season as well, but those guys I think are just having slightly better seasons than Ketel. And even though Ketel's great defensively, I think I would have them slightly higher on my MVP ballot than a Ketel Marte, but I'm happy to be wrong on that. Ketel Marte, according to FanDuel right now, fourth in MVP odds. Otani is minus 140. Harper plus 200. Freeman plus 1900. Ozuna plus 2300. And then Ketel Marte plus 3000 is fourth in MVP voting right now. Good odds. I don't think I would put any money on those odds, but good odds for Ketel Marte. I definitely think he will finish top 5 in MVP voting by the end of the season because I think voters do weigh defense more than I do, which is fine. I have no problem with that. I want Ketel Marte to get as many votes as possible. And if you think he's an MVP finalist, I don't blame you at all. If you think an MVP finalist is only guys who finish top 3 in voting, then I don't think he's a finalist. I think he's right there on the outside, but with still a whole second half to play. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Ketel Marte finishes in the top 3 of MVP voting by the end of the 2024 season. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.